The kingdom of Vandara stood mighty, its warriors trained in the art of battle, its kings feared across the lands. Among them was General Viren, a warrior unlike any other. His strength was unmatched, his skill in combat legendary, yet there was a strange weakness that plagued him, a recurring dream. Every night, he saw a woman with silver wings standing beneath a sky of swirling stars, calling his name in a voice that sent shivers through his soul. Her eyes glowed like moonlit rivers, and her sword shimmered with an ethereal glow. She would reach out for him, whispering something he could never hear, before vanishing into darkness. Viren would wake in a cold sweat, his heart pounding. He told no one of these visions, fearing they would think him mad. One day, war drums echoed through the land. The neighboring kingdom of Kaladar threatened Vandara's borders, and Viren led his soldiers into battle. But amidst the war cries and clashing steel, something strange happened. As he fought in the ruins of an ancient temple, his sword struck a stone slab carved with ancient markings. A sudden gust of wind howled through the battlefield, and a portal of golden light burst open before him. His soldiers staggered back in terror, but Viren was frozen in place. The portal seemed familiar, as if he had seen it before in another life. Without thinking, he stepped forward. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the world around him twisted, pulling him into a vortex of swirling energy. Viren awoke to find himself in a world unlike any he had known. The sky shimmered with hues of violet and gold, and rivers of light flowed through the land. Towering trees stretched toward the heavens, their leaves glowing softly. This was not the mortal world, this was something else. Before he could grasp what had happened, a figure descended from the sky. It was the woman from his dreams. Silver wings spread from her back, glimmering like polished pearl. She wielded a sword made of pure moonlight, and her voice was both powerful and sorrowful. "You have returned, my king," she said, her voice sending a familiar warmth through his chest. Viren staggered back, confused. "Who are you?" She lowered her sword, stepping closer. "I am Aviana, the Tooth Fairy warrior of the celestial realm. And you were once our king." Viren's head spun. King, a fairy, he had spent his entire life as a mortal warrior. How could this be? Aviana took his hand, and suddenly, visions flooded his mind, memories of another life. He saw himself, not as a human, but as a fairy king, standing beside Aviana in a kingdom of shimmering towers and floating islands. They had ruled together, their love unbreakable. But then came the betrayal. A jealous rival, consumed by envy, had cursed Viren, tearing him from Aviana and casting him into the mortal world, where he would live and die, never knowing his true self. The spell had erased his memories, but the bond between them had remained, lingering in his dreams. "Your destiny is to return," Aviana said, her eyes filled with hope. "But darkness still lurks. The one who cursed you still watches, waiting for the moment to strike again." Viren clenched his fists. He had spent his entire life fighting battles that were not his own. But now, this was a war he could not ignore. Viren remained in the fairy realm, training under Aviana. He had been a warrior all his life, but fighting as a fairy required a different skill set, one that relied not only on brute strength but on mastering the power within his soul. Aviana taught him to summon his latent abilities, to control wind and moonlight, to wield magic as effortlessly as he had once wielded a sword. Their bond deepened as they trained, the love they had lost slowly rekindling. For Viren, it was like falling in love for the first time and remembering a love that had existed for eternity, all at once. They would spar beneath the twin moons, their blades clashing as sparks of magic filled the air. At night, they would sit by the shimmering rivers, speaking of the past and the future. But peace was short-lived. The mortal realm and the fairy kingdom had long existed separately, but now, war loomed. The kingdom of Vandara, believing Viren to be lost, prepared for battle against the unknown forces that had taken him. Meanwhile, the dark force that had cursed Viren watched from the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Then, disaster struck. A powerful army of dark sorcerers invaded the fairy realm, led by none other than the one who had cursed Viren, a shadowy figure named Malakar. Aviana fought fiercely, her silver wings slashing through enemies like blades of light. But Malakar was stronger than before. In a moment of weakness, Aviana was captured, taken to the mortal world where she was imprisoned within a fortress of iron, magic draining metal that rendered fairies powerless. Viren was faced with an impossible choice. The fairies begged him to stay, to lead them as their king and defend their world. But Aviana was his heart, his soul. To lose her again was unthinkable. There was only one path he could take. Viren descended into the mortal world, his power barely contained within his human form. The warriors of Vandara, shocked to see him alive, demanded that he return to lead them. But Viren had only one goal, to rescue Aviana. With only a handful of allies, he stormed Malakar's fortress, cutting through enemy lines with a ferocity unmatched. He reached Aviana's prison, but before he could free her, Malakar appeared. "You are neither man nor fairy," Malakar sneered. "You belong to neither world." But Malakar had underestimated him. Viren's soul burned with both mortal fury and fairy power. The curse that had bound him shattered in an explosion of light. His body transformed, his human strength merged with his fairy essence, creating a form more powerful than either world had ever seen. With a single strike, he shattered the iron chains binding Aviana. Together, they faced Malakar in a battle that shook the heavens. Dark magic clashed with celestial power, and in the end, it was their love, their unbreakable bond, that gave them the strength to defeat him. As Malakar fell, the world shifted. The boundary between humans and fairies blurred, no longer divided by fear and war. Viren returned to the fairy kingdom, not just as a king but as a bridge between both realms. The warriors of Vandara, who had once sought to fight the fairies, now stood in awe of their former general's transformation. Under Viren and Aviana's rule, peace reigned. No longer would love be cursed. No longer would worlds remain apart. Together, they forged a future where humans and fairies coexisted, where destiny was no longer dictated by betrayal and loss, but by love and unity. And so, the warrior's wings soared once more, not as a fleeting dream, but as an eternal legend.